Welcome class to Lesson 17, Vocabulary. Your essential questions for today are, how can we use word attack strategies to figure out unfamiliar words? And why are root words, prefixes, and suffixes important? By the end of this lesson, you should be able to define vocabulary from I have a dream and define the Latin root cred. Alright, so as you know, we have been working with word attack strategies. And this chart here focuses on 4 essential strategies: sentence questions, visuals, synonyms, and antonyms. So let's take a look at our vocabulary words and pronounce them together. Say these with me: creed, defaulted, degenerate, hallowed, momentous, and oppression. Alright, so let's take a look at the first word, creed. As you can see, the visual, there's several men holding a document with writing. And a creed is often looked at in the form of a document and writing. The synonyms, or words that mean the same as creed, are religion, faith, or statement of shared beliefs. The opposite or antonym of creed would be atheism, which means non-belief in anything, disbelief, or doubt. So thinking about creed, do you think most people take a creed seriously? Why or why not? The second word is defaulted. If you take a look at the visual, there's a picture of an empty wallet. If you default on something, you fail, you dishonor, or you neglect to do something. So in this case, the person defaulted on payment. There is no money to be collected. The antonyms or opposite words of defaulted are achieve, complete, or finish, or in this case, to pay. So let's look at that in a sentence. How would you feel if you loaned a friend some money and he defaulted on his promise to pay it back? Third vocabulary word is degenerate. If you take a look, this is a picture of an apartment building that's just falling apart. It's disintegrating. Some synonyms or similar words for degenerate are corrupt, deteriorated, or degraded. When things degenerate, they're typically no longer good anymore. The antonym or antonyms for this word are clean, good, healthy, moral, or in the case of this apartment would be new. Let's take a look at the sentence question. If the condition of your house were to degenerate over the next few years, what might you have to do? I know if it was my apartment, I would be looking for a new place to move. The next word is hallowed. If you take a look, there's a lady that's visiting a cemetery. Some synonyms for hallowed are sacred, blessed, or holy. Have you ever heard of the phrase hallowed ground? The antonym or opposite for the word hallowed is unholy, unsacred, not special. Here's a sentence example. What is an example of a place that might be considered hallowed ground? So here's an example of a cemetery. Can you think of another place that might be considered sacred or hallowed ground? The next word is momentous. You take a look at the picture, you see graduation and all of the graduates throwing their caps in the air. This is a very important, serious, or crucial day. Those are the synonyms. The opposite would be an event that's insignificant, meaningless, or unimportant. Let's look at the sentence question. Why do people often take photographs during momentous occasions in their lives? Well, I took a lot of photographs during some pretty momentous occasions in my life. I wanted to document and remember those times because they were big and important. The last word is oppression. If you take a look, there's a picture of hands in chains. Oppression is not a good thing. Synonyms or words that mean the same would be abuse, cruelty, injustice. The opposite would be help, kindness, niceness. Have you ever heard of oppression when listening to or reading through historical texts? Have you ever heard of a certain type of people being oppressed? So let's look at the sentence question. Why do you think many people dislike living under oppression? I don't think anyone would like living under oppression. All right, so again, let's review one more time and pronounce these vocabulary words. Creed, defaulted, degenerate, hollowed, momentous, and oppression. If you take a look under resources, I have a blank document that has this chart on it for you to fill out. So if you would like to write these words down, I highly encourage you to do that and take your own notes and maybe add your own visuals for these words. All right, so let's learn a new root word. Remember before we talked about root words being very important to helping you figure out what words mean. All right, so the Latin root cred means to trust, to believe. Answer each of the following questions using one of these words containing cred. Let's look at the first one. Credence, the act of believing. Credible means believable. And credulous means ready to believe. All right, in each of these three, you can see the root word cred comes first. And then there's endings, okay? So we're going to be breaking apart the word and taking a look at those. These are suffixes. Remember, they come after the root word. So here are your endings. They come after the root word. The first one, why isn't it wise to give credence to everything you hear on commercials? Well, if I think about that, not everything that commercials say are true. Sometimes they just want to persuade you into maybe buying something or doing something. Number two, why do lawyers want credible witnesses to support their cases? And if you look, credible means believable. Well, I believe that if you're going to court for a particular situation, a lawyer would want a believable witness, somebody who is telling the truth and who is believable in the statements that they're giving. And lastly, what kind of trouble might someone who is too credulous get into? And this means ready to believe, or a person that's very believable. What kind of trouble could they get into? So be thinking about this root word cred the next time you see a word that has cred in it. And remember, it means to trust or to believe. So think about how that applies in the sentence and break apart the word. All right, so here's your checklist. Can you define 6 new vocabulary words and use them in a sentence? Do you know what the Latin root word cred means? And can you list 4 new word attack strategies that we listed in the chart? If you can do these 3 things, then you are ready to answer the questions below this video. Good luck!